about the tuning of the car?
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the block and the internals of the engine. Keep my videos going. I wanted to share some things, some tips when you're tuning. You know,
Yeah.
it's hard to get them to run good. We'll talk a little bit about the block and the big block Chevys. Maybe we'll pull out some tools. We'll look at a bunch of tools. How's that?
Yeah.
Let me get on it a little bit.
Yeah.
Running real good.
Yeah.
Okay, so guys, got my channel going. I wanted to talk about my block. My little brother wanted me to talk about the internals and the big block. He actually works in the Tonawanda plant in Buffalo building LS engines. But so he wanted me to talk a little bit more about the quench. So, you know, this here block's a Mark IV block. It's got the mechanical fuel pump. There are Mark VI blocks, they did away with the mechanical fuel pump, so you're gonna have to run an electric pump. Good block. It's a 75 4-bolt main. Got it out of a junkyard, and got it out of a truck. It's not a tall deck, and the 427 truck blocks were tall decks, so you got to watch that. But I took it to the machine shop in Colorado, Area Auto Parts, good machine shop, and they've done a lot of blocks for me. Your quench, you want it. It's where your piston sits. It's either zero deck, or I did mine 5 out of the hole. And the 496 kit, I did, you bore them 60 over, Wiseco pistons, 30cc domes, forged pistons, standard rings, Hastings rings, cast iron rings. Skip White Performance, I bought the rotating assembly from. That's a good place to buy a rotating assembly. It's all scat, steel crank. Your quench is between your head, the flat part of your piston. That's your quench. And you know, you're gonna adjust that with your head gasket. And that's gonna give you a good flame in your combustion chamber. And your compression's gonna go with your heads. Like these are AFR heads, and so you know, they were like 118s when I bought them from AFR, fully CNC'd. I had them milled, so I had them milled to I think 113, and that's how you're building your compression. Starting to get to where your gasket's gonna be. And so, you know, if you do like zero DAC with 39 thousandths head gasket, your quench is gonna be 39 thousandths, which is pretty good. But I would get it down to 32, 34. So, you know, I did 5 out of the hole. So now you're working on your quench just to get the flame. You're gonna wanna run at least 12 to 1 compression. You know, you could run 10 to 1 compression. That's a big thing going on. It's like people want to run low compression, but you know, you drive a car at 600 horsepower compared to 400, and the throttle response is, you got to have good compression. I'm going to talk about the camshaft. It's a Howard's mechanical roller. It's a 680 lift. Duration is, it'll get you more power at the higher RPMs. That's why I ran a little bit more duration. You know, you're going to check your piston to valve clearance. You're going to have to take your time. More duration you run, it's going to get tighter. The piston to valve clearance is going to get a little tighter. Minimum was a 90. Actually, this cam, when we degreed it, it came in 2 degrees advanced because I had adjustable timing set. And we had tried a couple cams, you know. And so, yeah, so once you get all that done, and you're good. Then all it is your platform is built. You're good. If you're pinging, these distributors rust. The MSD's got, their distributors rust. So are the GM ones. There's a lot going on with your distributor. You got your rotor. You want to make sure your rotor button. Is up a little, because if you don't get it down, you'll burn that button, middle button. You'll burn it right up. So that's the first thing. This is a good distributor. This is a really good distributor. It's got a fat shaft. It's like a half inch shaft. And what's important on them is your gear. So if you're running a billet, uh, Howard's cam, you're going to want to run a bronze gear. I was running. This is a carbon fiber gear. These are really nice. It's a Howard's carbon fiber gear. These are really nice gears. I love this. But I'm running a bronze now, and I try different things. But your gap, you're going to want about 16 thousandths between these shims with your gap when you build your distributors. That's important. Another thing is when you put your distributor in and you drop it down, they sell these shims because what happens is you're milling heads, right? You're milling the heads, and what happens is you might get this sitting down, but it might walk a little bit when it's in there like that. When you put your distributor in, you want it to touch, bang. That's it. The gasket, touch, bang. And if it's not, you want to shim it. You want to get that distributor up to where it just touches, and then you can lock it down. And you'll be able to tell when you're tightening it down because you don't want to jam your oil pump. There's a lot going on. You got your cam, your distributor gear, your gap, your rotor button, then your oil pump. If you run a high volume oil pump, you're going to change that. You're going to have to run a stud to hold your oil pump. And don't run a bolt in there because the bolt can go all the way up and hit your main cap, your main bearing shell. So don't just run a bolt. Just buy a stud kit for your oil pump. If you go to a high volume or also oil pump. And I'm running a deep pan. It's only 6 quarts, but the K&N oil filter it's a long filter, so it's about a quart. So you need 7 quarts of oil. I wanted to show you guys this. This is important. Your float level. That's about as high as you want to go. You see him shake it. Yeah, because after that, you're going to pull in the garage. You're going to smell gas. You're going to be wet up here. And your plugs are going to be black. Barely touch the bottom of that bowl. This thing runs great. You can lean it out. Start low and work your way up. And then I learned that these Holley carburetors, your needles, they're pretty good on these. When they stick, you're gonna hear it fill right up, and it's gonna go right down you're gonna gurgle and go right down your oil. You're gonna have to change your oil. So the gas nowadays, that ethanol is like, it just eats up these. These are good, but they do stick every now and then. But you're gonna have to rebuild your carb like every 4 years with this gas, unless you go buy some good gas. But what other happens to them is this little O-ring. These little O-rings where it sits down in when you put your needle and seat in, diesel leak. This gets hard, and you'll be running rich. You won't know. You'll think, oh God, you're lowering your floats and all that. It's going to be this O-ring. So you're going to have these AED kits are real good. You get these AED kits and you put them in. All you need is carb cleaner. You got to soak them. That stuff's bad for you anyways. I used to soak carbs all the time. It probably was bad for me. All right, guys, I wanted to talk a little bit about, I missed the fuel system for you. That's a $450 Holley pump. I'm not running a regulator. Probably should run a regulator and a filter before the carb. But just so you know, I ran 1/2-inch line all the way back to the tank. When you're drag racing, street, maybe not. And then there's a company called McRob in Nevada, and they make A-body sending units for your tank, 1/2-inch pickups. They're a really good company. I talked to the guy on the phone. He's cool. And he's got the fuel filters, the big billet brass fuel filters. I got 2 of them in line. I got one for the pump, my mechanical pump, and I got one for my nitrous system. And this is the line that I've been running like for my fuel. So all the GM 3/8 lines out of it now. It's all there, but it's not hooked up. For all you LS guys, you got a real LS6. There's only going to be one fuel line going to the pump. That was one of the ways to tell. Performance car. But when you do your fuel pump test, you want about 7 pounds max for your Holly. You put a gauge on here and it's running. I found out there's a little plug in your little fuel setup here for your double pumper. It's going to be bouncing all over because of that pump rod on the cam. And you're just going to be like, what the hell? But if you got a good battery and you just check your fuel pressure with a gauge, you can even use your vacuum gauge. Just put this right into that fitting on your fuel rail. And when you crank it, you take all your plugs out, crank it over, you get a true reading. That's what the regulator does. It gives you a better reading. But these regulators go bad too. But that pump's been good for years. It stayed right at 6.5, 7 pounds. And they sell a kit for it for the diaphragm, if the bad gas ever ruined the diaphragm. But yeah, I wanted to tell you about the fuel system too. That's cool. My little granddaughter's helping me. Anthony, my nephew, was helping me. Now this kid took over because Anthony's in Niagara Falls. But so here's a plug I pulled. It looks good. I just started up in idle. You don't want to let them idle cold. Here's your timing mark. Right there, right on the bend. That's your timing. This thing runs great. The big block's like a lot of timing. Like I'm running 42 degrees timing at like 12-to-1 compression, and it don't ping. On this max boost, you run that every now and then. It's a little royal purple. Good stuff for 93. It'll bring it up to 96. And so I wanted to show you a plug. So what I do is I find a nice open road and I get going about 75, get those secondaries open, and I pull over and shut it off. And then you can check your mixture. That's burning good. So yeah, your timing, if it's way up here, it's retarded. If you're way down, it's too advanced. And then, so, when you do your timing, you got little weights in your distributor. Guys know that. I might talk about that, but you want to snap it. You want to snap your timing and rev your engine to 3 grand and see your total timing. You can bring it up slow or just, and if your springs are good on your distributor, 30, I'd run these, I'd start at like 37. And then you probably be at like your initial, probably be like 19. But yeah, so you just do that. And want to talk about the push rods. So that's the big thing. All this milling of the heads, you're getting your quench and your compression all dialed in. You're going to have to buy push rods. You're going to have to buy these adjustable push rods. You're going to have to put them in there, turn your engine over, and mark the top of your valve stem with a Sharpie. And there's other ways to do it, but you want that sharp. It'll take the guy at the Speed Shop taught me this. It'll take that, put that roller rocker right on the valve stem and let it take off the marker right in the middle of the valve stem. Then you lock it down, and they'll mic it, and they'll order your push rods for you. Milling your heads and all that stuff. Milling your block to get your quench and your compression. You can't just go buy push rods. You got to measure them. So I wanted to tell you guys a story about these blocks. So when I was a kid, I was 18, I worked at the diesel mechanic my whole life for 40 years. I worked on transit buses in Niagara Falls. And my little brother, he works at the Tonawanda. This is a Tonawanda block. It's actually a 75 big block Tonawanda plant. But the old timers in the lunchroom would tell me they would push these blocks out for someone to go get them later on in the night, Can't do that no more, because cameras, But that's a pretty cool story. It was a 427 rat engines. That's the old timers. Well, I don't know why they would lie. That's probably why your build sheet, some cars, these guys, they get the build sheet and the block don't match the build sheet. So that's a cool story. So I tell my little brother, I'm waiting for my LS block, bro. So yeah, that's a good story. And when you're building these engines, you're gonna really fight your hood. You're gonna have to get these drop downs. This is the hardest part, probably one of the hard things. You're gonna you're gonna have to clay test your hood, and that you see a lot of guys running around with no hood. That's why they can't. But you can do it. Like so don't get a tall deck. I'll show you what I do. This is a K&N filter. You're gonna want to run as big as an air filter as you can get. You don't want to run those little air filters, but and for blow by, these you get a lot of blow by. And your ring gap. So I run Hastings rings. I run cast iron rings. You could run top rings, nitrate ring. Especially being out of the hole. Your pistons out of the hole or zero deck. But I talked to the lady at Hastings years ago. She told me trust those rings, and I like the cast iron rings because they break in good. But you want to get your gaps. Seal Power came out with an article years ago. They put the second gap on your second ring. That's the ring that pushes the oil back down. That's why it's got a little dot on the ring. You don't want to get that turned around because that scrapes the oil back down. Your second ring is like the oil control ring. And your last set of rings, the spring and the rails, are your oiling rings. They oil for the skirt. But, you're going to have a lot of blow-by, so you get your when you do a leak down test, if you're at 20%, you're good. You're not going to be at 10%, but you want a big breather. You want a big air cleaner. You got it, and if you have a hookup like this, if you have a hookup like that, you're going to be pulling a lot of blow by. This is good. And this elbow, I made this. I just drilled a hole. They sell this whole thing. They're expensive, but this is like a 1-inch electrical conduit elbow, 90 degree. You could just drill a hole and you can make it. And then, and these new PCV valves, like, you're right. They got the orifice now, And when I raced, I used to run a vacuum system all the way back to the collector, these things. And everyone knows this. Like a lot of old timers, this is for new people. They're starting out, they don't know what to do. You just run this right to your collector, and you put your nipple in on an angle. And these work good when you're racing. And I got mufflers. They say not to use them with mufflers, but it pulls. I got 12 inches of vacuum on this engine with my cam. And like I was saying, you want to run a lot of power like at top end. You're going to want to run a little bit more duration on your cam. You want to run a rectangular port, open plane intake. And that's going to give you power at the top end. If you run a dual plane and you run oval port heads, you don't really need to because the big block stroke, they're going to give you enough torque. But yeah, so this is all getting into you got to have a good breather. This will make a mess of your engine bay. If you just run one of these and one of these, I mean, you can do it, but it cleans up your engine bay, but you'll have oil everywhere. You'll be always wiping off everything. That's no good. So yeah, you want to have crank vent, that's important. And your rings, you can file your rings. You're going to want to file your rings, that's fun. You're going to spend a day doing that. But you got to take your time. And I got this ring filer. Where did I put that? Oh, here it is. You go downward and you hold your ring, just do one side. And when this stone gets wore out, you won't ruin your rings. And like your gap ain't as important as when you break your rings in. Like I said, you're gonna want 4/1000s per inch of bore. So 21's good. I'm running nitrous, so 21, 23. If you hit 25, don't worry. It's like, don't throw your rings out. Like, you can go, your gap can be bigger. You're not going to lose compression. your compression, it's going to be when your ring seat. So, yeah. So I'll show you a little bit about some of the tools too. And I hope this helps everyone, you know. But yeah, make sure you got a good breather. Oh, I wanted to show you guys something else. When you get all done, I like this. You guys can go do one of those.